Hold on to your seats, because when Hollywood's brightest supernova Sydney Sweeney stormed into the fiery arena of daytime television, she ignited a confrontation so raw, so electrifying, it will be etched in your mind forever. Nobody expected her appearance on The View to spiral into a cultural explosion. But when the Euphoria and White Lotus star faced off over a polarizing American Eagle campaign, what started as a standard promo slot morphed into a heart-pounding showdown that left jaws on the floor, security rushing in, and one of them dragged out in a blaze of chaos. This wasn't just a debate. It was a seismic event that shook the airwaves and redefined what daytime TV could be. Smash that subscribe button, drop a comment below telling me who you think dominated this volcanic face-off, and let's plunge into the drama that set the world on fire. The air crackled with tension. The second Sydney Sweeney glided onto the set, her golden hair cascading in flawless waves, her crisp white blazer almost a defiant emblem against the storm swirling around her. Latest American Eagle, add the audience's applause, was polite, but charged like a storm cloud ready to burst. Everyone knew this wouldn't be a breezy celebrity chat. Joy Behar, perched at her usual spot, had a glint in her eyes that screamed she was primed for war. Her notes were meticulously spread out a clear sign. She was loaded for bear, far beyond what you'd expect for a routine chat about Sydney's upcoming projects. Whoopi Goldberg, the ringmaster of this daytime spectacle, kicked things off with her signature authority. "Welcome back to View, everyone," she said, her voice steady but humming with anticipation. "We're here with Sydney Sweeney, star of Euphoria, White Lotus, and now the lightning rod, a massive advertising firestorm. Sydney, thanks for joining us." Sydney flashed a dazzling smile, settling into her chair with the poise of someone who danced through countless press gauntlets. "Thanks for having me, Whoopi. Always a pleasure," she said, her tone warm but cautious, like she was stepping onto a tightrope. But Joy Behar wasn't here for small talk. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing, voice cutting like a blade. "Sydney, let's get real. This American Eagle campaign, you're great. Genes, you're great. Genes, you had to know that tagline would spark a firestorm in 2025 with this country's history of eugenics. How could you not see the implications?" The studio went dead silent. The challenge was laid bare faster than anyone expected. Sydney's smile held firm, but her posture stiffened, a subtle sign she wasn't backing down. "Joy, with all due respect, I think you're blowing this way out of proportion," she replied, her voice calm but laced with steel. It had Gene's commercial creative team thought it was clever wordplay to suggest that some coded eugenics message is frankly ridiculous. Joy's eyebrows shot up, her face a mix of disbelief and defiance. "Ridiculous?" she snapped. "Sydney, do you understand the history of genetic superiority claims in this country? Do you get what it means when a blonde, blue-eyed actress is celebrated for her great genes in a time when racial equity is still a fight?" The audience held its breath, sensing the storm about to break. Sydney leaned forward, eyes locking onto Joy's. "I understand history just fine, Joy," she said, her voice now sharp with defiance. "But I also know the difference between a clothing ad and Nazi propaganda. Honestly, I'm shocked someone as sharp as you would mix the two up." The studio air turned icy. Whoopi glanced between them like a referee, unsure whether to stop the fight or let it rage. Sarah Haynes squirmed in her seat, visibly uneasy. "But Joy was just getting started. My intelligence," Joy said, her voice rising, "tells me that in 2025, we need to be careful about the messages we send, especially when they celebrate whiteness and conventional beauty standards while this country wrestles with racial divides." Sydney matched Joy's intensity, her voice steady but burning. "And my intelligence tells me you're creating outrage where none exists. This is performative activism. Joy, you're taking an innocent ad and spinning it into a conspiracy to divide people." The word performative landed like a bombshell. Joy's eyes blazed with fury. "Performative activism," she snapped, her voice sharp as a whip. "Excuse me, young lady, but I've been fighting for civil rights since before you were born. Don't you dare lecture me about activism." The audience was frozen, the air thick with a confrontation spiraling into chaos. This wasn't daytime TV anymore. It was a battlefield. Sydney's composure wavered, but she held her ground. "I've been in an industry that picks apart every word, every image, every choice I make since I was a teenager." She shot back. "I know what real discrimination looks like, and this isn't you're creating a problem to fit your narrative." Joy slammed her hand on the table, the sound booming like thunder. "My narrative," she roared, "my narrative is that words matter. Imagery matters. When you position yourself as a poster child for great genes, you're responsible for the message that sends." Sydney's eyes widened, her polished facade cracking. "Genetic superiority," she said, incredulous. "Are you hearing yourself? It's a Genes commercial. Joy, am not running for office on a platform of racial purity. I'm selling denim." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Sydney was wearing American Eagle jeans, a detail that felt almost too perfect, whether planned or pure chance. Joy pressed on relentless. You can downplay it all you want, but that doesn't change the impact. When young girls see that ad, see you celebrate for your jeans, what message do you think that sends to girls who don't look like you? Sydney's composure snapped. What message does it send when women like you tear down other women for succeeding? She fired back. What message does it send when you hunt for offense, for division, for ways to make people feel guilty for existing? The studio erupted, not in applause, but in shock, gas, and murmurs. This was uncharted territory. For the View, arguments were common, but this level of raw personal attack was unheard of. Joy's face flushed, her voice trembling with anger. How dare you suggest holding you accountable is tear you down? How dare you play the victim when you chose to profit from advertising that celebrates genetic privilege? Sydney was on her feet now, though she hadn't consciously decided to stand genetic privilege. She said, her voice dripping with disbelief, "You're talking about me like I'm some master race propagandist because I did a clothing ad. This is insanity." Whoopi finally tried to step in. "Ladies, let's take a breath here," she said, her voice firm but strained, but Joy cut her off. "No, Whoopi. This is important. This young woman needs to understand her platform comes with responsibility. She can't just put out whatever message she wants without consequences." Sydney whirled on her. "My platform, my responsibility. Joy, you reach millions every day. You're using your platform right now to bully a young woman for doing her job. Where's your responsibility?" The word bully hung in the air like a blade. Joy's face went from flushed to pale, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Bully." She said, "You think I'm bullying you by asking you to be accountable?" Sydney didn't flinch. "I think you're bullying me by twisting an innocent ad into something sinister so you can grandstand about social justice. I think you're bullying me by suggesting I'm responsible for every possible interpretation of a campaign I didn't write or create." The silence that followed was suffocating, a moment where the entire studio seemed to hold its breath. This was no longer about an ad or social responsibility. It was personal, primal. A clash of wills that had stripped away all pretense. Joy's hands trembled as she gripped the table, the accusation of bullying hitting a nerve deeper than anyone expected. "You want to know what bullying looks like, Sydney?" She said, her voice thick with decades of frustration. "Bullying is when people like me had to claw for every opportunity in this industry, while people like you waltz in and get handed everything because you fit the right image. Bullying is being told to be grateful for scraps while the Golden Girls get the feast." Sydney's eyes flashed with fire. "People like me, people like you, are we really doing this, Joy? Are we reducing each other to stereotypes on national TV?" Joy didn't back down. "You reduce yourself to a stereotype the moment you sign on to that campaign. You let yourself be marketed as genetically superior, and now you're shocked when someone calls out the other host for frozen Sarah Haynes. Looked like she wanted to vanish Alyssa Farah Griffin. Stared wide-eyed, and even Whoopi, a veteran of TV battles, seemed unsure how to rein this in." Sydney took a step closer to the table, her voice low and menacing. "I never marketed myself as anything other than an actress doing her job. You're the one attaching all this meaning to it. You're the one seeing racism and eugenics in a clothing ad that says more about your mindset than mine." Joy shot to her feet, her chair skidding back with a screech. "My mindset," she bellowed, "my mindset comes from decades of watching this industry, this country, celebrate one type of beauty, one type of person while everyone else fights for crumbs. My mindset comes from experience you don't have, and wisdom. You clearly lack wisdom." Sydney laughed to sound sharp and humorless. "Is it wisdom to attack someone for their appearance, to suggest I'm less deserving because of how I look? Because that's exactly what you're doing." The audience was silent, attention so thick it was almost alive. The cameras captured every moment of this explosive showdown, a moment destined to dominate headlines and social media feeds. Joy's voice rose again, all traces of professional composure gone. "I'm saying that with great privilege comes great responsibility, and you're shirking that responsibility by pretending your choices don't have consequences." Sydney didn't miss a beat. "And I'm saying you're manufacturing consequences that don't exist. You're turning a simple ad into a racial battleground because it serves your agenda." Joy's voice cracked with indignation. "My agenda is equality. My agenda is making sure young girls of all colors see themselves in media, and not just blonde, blue-eyed actresses selling the idea their genetics make them special." Sydney moved closer, her voice deadly quiet. "And my agenda is doing my job without being lectured by someone who thinks she's the moral arbiter of my every decision. Your equality looks a lot like tearing down other women to feel superior." That was the breaking point. Joy leaned over the table, her face contorted with rage. "Superior? You want to talk about superior, you're standing. They're lecturing me about women supporting women while you profit from advertising that celebrates genetic superiority. The irony is unbelievable. The only thing unbelievable, Sydney shot back, her voice rising to match Joy's, is that you think you get to decide what messages are acceptable. Who made you the gatekeeper of social responsibility? Joy slammed both hands on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot experience gave me. That authority, years of fighting for representation, for equality, for the right to be heard in a world that silenced voices like mine, something you wouldn't understand. Because you've never had to fight for anything. Sydney's composure shattered completely. Never had to fight for anything. Are you serious, Joy? Do you have any idea what it's like to have every aspect of your appearance, your talent, your worth dissected by people like you, to be told you're only successful because of your looks, not your work, your dedication, your skill? Joy's voice dripped with sarcasm. Boo-hoo. Poor little Sydney, criticized for problematic advertising. Meanwhile, women of color can't even get cast in major roles. But sure, you're the real victim here. The sarcasm was a mistake. Sydney's eyes blazed with fury, her voice venomous. You know what, Joy? You're a writing blonde, conventionally attractive by Hollywood standards. That's probably opened doors. But you know what else? I work 16-hour days. I memorize scripts until I know them. Backward, I do my own stunts and pour my soul into every role. But none of that matters to you, does it? All you see is the package, not the person inside. Joy didn't flinch. The package is the problem when it's used to sell the idea that some people are genetically better than others. Nobody's selling that idea except you. Sydney snapped. You took a playful tagline about genes and turned it into a manifesto on genetic superiority. You created this controversy because you needed something to be outraged about. Joy shouted back, her professionalism gone. I didn't create anything. The implications were always there. The history is there celebrating whiteness. Is there just because you ignore it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Sydney stepped back, her hands clenched. And just because you see problems everywhere doesn't mean they're real. Sometimes a commercial is just a commercial. Sometimes people can exist without everything they do being filtered through your lens of perpetual grievance. Joy's voice at a fever pitch. Caring about equality isn't perpetual grievance. It's basic human decency, something you clearly lack. That was the final straw. Sydney faced Joy head on, her voice slicing through the studio. Basic human decency. You spent the last 15 minutes attacking my character, dismissing my work, and suggesting I'm a racist propagandist because I did a clothing ad. If you want to talk about decency, Joy, maybe start by looking in the mirror. Like, comment, share, subscribe.